the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, all the other leaders, honourable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. The long speech of the Minister, I would want just to emphasize for you I'm trying to see where it is here in the speech. There's paragraph 11 when you get the speech, where he informs us that the size of the Ugandan economy is now $61 billion by the exchange rate method, and 174 billion by the PPP method, purchasing power parity. And because of that, and given our population, which is about 46 million, 49 something, we are now no longer an LDC, the least developed countries. We are now a lower middle income country. In 1986, the size of the GDP was $3.9 billion. So you can see the economy has grown more than 20 times from that time. So I thought you should mark that, because in a long speech like this, you may not notice the big picture. Then finally on the speech, there's a way he summarized. I'm trying to see the page. This is paragraph 140 in his speech, where he said, he told you of the economic fundamentals. That's a very good summary. And he said, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Uganda's economy has taken off. The economic fundamentals, and what are those fundamentals? GDP growth. Is the economy growing or not? Price stability. Are the prices stable or not? Currency stability. Is the currency stable or not? Jobs. Are jobs being created or not? Export earnings. Are the export earnings going up or not? And then finally, FDI, receipts. The foreign direct investment. Are they coming in or not? I thought that you should note that. Now, going to my own speech, you remember last time I promised that I would address two issues. During the State of the Nation address, I told you that today, as part of the budget speech, I will address two issues. And these are the East African Federation and corruption. I will do exactly that. However, I will dissect the corruption into two. First of all, corruption for getting money through crooked ways as one type of corruption, and political corruption through the use of money to get political support, not based on principles or policies. Politics is about principles and policies. That's what you should be telling the public to choose from. My policy is this, his policy is that, you the public, you choose. But when you bring in money, you are polluting the Chiruza. Let me start with the more important question of the political federation of East Africa and possible other federations in other parts of Africa. This was a goal pursued by our ancestors, starting with the Pan-Africanist pioneers among the black people in the United States of America. These were W.B. Du Bois, George Padmore, Marcus Garvey, Sylvester Williams, and others. By the mid-1900s, new actors had come on the scene in the persons of Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Sekou Toure of Guinea, Modibo Keita, and others. But if you go back, you will find that by 1900, the whole of Africa had shamefully been colonized because our egocentric and incompetent kings had failed to defend us, and instead we are busy fighting fratricide wars among us. At that time, when we were colonized, the slogan for survival was, in quotes, Uhuru na Umoja, independence and unity. That's what we were saying. We unite, we fight for freedom, independence, and then after we unite to get strength. That was the slogan. Starting with 1912, the Africans in South Africa took the initiative and started a new anti-colonial force, the African National Congress of South Africa. And you should know that even Mahatma Gandhi of India was also in India, in South Africa at this time, so he was part of this effort. At the beginning of the new African resistance, led by more informed people. Our resistance was assisted by two factors that came on the scene during that century. These were, number one, the emergence of the socialist camps of nations in the form of the Soviet Union in 1917, China in 1949, and others. These huge countries were taken over by people who did not believe in colonialism. These were the communists. So this was a new factor. As we were fighting for our freedom, this new factor came on the scene. And the second factor were the fratricidal wars, fratricidal inter-imperialist wars of 1914 to 1918 and 1939 to 1945 among the imperialists. The imperialists were now fighting over us. Who will control which one? You know, those imperialists had divided us up, shared us like a cake because of our incompetent kings here. Came, sat in Berlin, this is for you, this is for you, this is for you. Then there was a new country called Germany, which had become united a short while before that. They wanted to start a war. Say, you are cheating us. We also want a share with the colonies. Then they said, please don't start a war, Bismarck, please. Let's give you some of the properties. You take Tanganyika, Rwanda, Burundi, Namibia, Cameroon, and so on. But by the end of the century, Germany was saying, you have cheated me. I also need more slaves. I need more colonies. That's how their wars started, fighting over us. These two factors, on the one hand, meant that the worldwide anti-colonial movement, including the African anti-colonial movement, could receive solidarity from those socialist countries. And on the other hand, the imperialist countries had weakened themselves in the process of their greed for world domination. So as they were fighting over us, fortunately they weakened themselves, which was good for us. The worldwide anti-colonial movement, on account of these three factors, the three factors are our resistance, number one; number two, the emergence of the socialist countries which were supporting us; and number three, the mutual weakening of the imperialists among themselves. The worldwide anti-colonial movement, on account of these three factors, started scoring strategic victories with the independence of India in 1947, Indonesia in 1945, the defeat of the Kuomintang traitors in China, 1949, etc. Amazingly, the imperialists tried in many cases to maintain colonial control even after these catastrophes. The French tried to recognize Indochina, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos until the Vietnamese defeated them at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The French were defeated in Algeria. The British faced the Mau Mau armed resistance in Kenya and mass resistance throughout the whole of Africa. Here in Uganda, Ignatius Kangabe Musazi led the mass resistance movement. I don't hear you, the political actors who are always on the radio, I don't hear you talking about I.K. Musazi, talking about nothing most of the time. Musazi played a very big role in our struggle. On account of this resistance, but this is also the weakness of the NRM Secretariat. They should do more sensitization. On account of these resistance efforts, by 1963, 36 African countries had achieved independence, Uhuru, so we had achieved Uhuru. It is these countries that founded the Organization of African Unity at Addis Ababa. There was, however, another almost 20 African countries that were still under colonial rule. The African Summit gave an ultimatum to the imperialists to give independence to the whole of Africa peacefully, or they would be ejected by force. People don't know this history. They just run around, but if you don't know this, you can make a lot of mistakes. So the OAU meeting in 1963 gave an ultimatum to the imperialists, said, get out of the whole of Africa peacefully, or we shall throw you out by force. The imperialists hot air. They never paid heed. However, the Africans were serious and able to defeat the imperialists by force. Indeed, by 1974, Samora Machel had defeated the Portuguese army of 70,000 in Mozambique. Amilcar Cabral and his colleagues had defeated the Portuguese army in Guinea-Bissau. Agostinho Neto had defeated the Portuguese army in Angola. By 1980, Robert Mugabe and Zanla, their army, had defeated Ian Smith in Zimbabwe. 1990, Namibia got independence, and in 1994, the African majority defeated the white racists in South Africa. 5 centuries of Africa's shame of the slave trade and colonialism should have ended then. This is where we need to really examine ourselves, because we achieved victory both by peaceful method and by war. So what happened? What happened? When you hear people on the radio talking, just talk, empty talk. What happened? Why did we people? This is not fiction. It is history. We defeated the imperialists by peaceful means, but also by war. So what happened? Exactly what happened? Five centuries of Africa's shame of the slave trade and colonialism should have ended then. we had achieved independence, uhuru in the whole of Africa. The question was, where was umoja? Because you remember the slogan was uhuru na umoja. Now by 1994, the whole of Africa had achieved uhuru. So what happened to the umoja? In the meantime, the question was, where was umoja, unity? In the meantime, we who were participants in much of this time had to diagnose the problem. In that process, we established the 3 historical missions and the 4 ideological principles. To establish the missions and the principles, we would start with a question. Question number 1 was, do the Africans need, deserve, and are they entitled to prosperity like other peoples in the world, or are they not so entitled? That's the question we would ask. Are the Africans entitled, and do they deserve prosperity like all the other people in the world? If the answer is yes, the next question would be, where does prosperity come from? Can prosperity sustainably come from begging? Because you remember the issue of aid. Can you get prosperity through aid? Our answer was no. Prosperity can only come from producing a good or a service, which is what Honorable Kasej is saying, by being a wealth creator, producing a good or a service by an individual, a family, a company, etc., and selling it sustainably with Echibaro. Echibaro is the assessing the profitability. In that way, you will get income and solve your problems. That, however, raises another question. Who will sustainably buy our goods or our services reliably with predictability? Because you can see what's happening in the world. The other time, you people, you said, well, we don't want our children to be homosexuals. Our children, we didn't say other people's children. We don't want our children to be homosexuals. Oh, and some of our friends who had given us market access took us off their AGOA list. Imagine. So, how can you rely on such a person for business? Today, you trade with him. Tomorrow, he stops you because of your internal policy, not even anything affecting him. So, the third question, who will sustainably buy our goods or services reliably and with predictability? When we started the African tribes, including my own, the Banyankore Bahororo, we discovered that intra-tribal trade is either limited or completely absent. Why? It is because these communities sometimes produce similar products. The Banyankore Bahororo, for instance, all have milk, beef, bananas, etc. A does not buy from B and vice versa. Therefore, identity, being one tribe, does not necessarily solve the problem of prosperity. Happily, we discovered a ready solution, and this was Uganda, that multi-tribal unity, which was already there. You had the Banyankore Bahororo there, but you also had other people. Even in the colonial times of the small enclave economy, the business complementarities among the tribes were already coming up. I was able to pay for education on account of two categories of actors. Category one was Amos Kaguta, my father, who had cattle he had inherited from his ancestors. Hence, those cattle were Enshugi, the cattle of Jaja, inherited from ancestors. You could therefore sell some of them and pay my school fees. The problem, however, was that there was neither a single Munyankore Mhororo cattle trader at that time, nor was there a developed beef market in the area of Ntungamo. You know where Ntungamo is? You know where Ntungamo is, you people? You may not find it on the Uganda map, you may not find it. So in Ntungamo, we had neither traders of cattle, nor did we have a meat market at that time. That is how the second category of rescuers came in. The people who rescued me to go to school. These were two Baganda, one of them called Warusimbi Mpanga, and another one called Buchenya. Buchenya, the Banyankore would call him Buchenya, but the Baganda would call him Bukenya. Now that of Buchenya has a grandson who is a big fellow now in the government. I think he's in the Equal Opportunities Commission. If that Munyankole Muganda is here, he can come and they see how Banyankole Baganda look like. Banyankole is the Baganda. Is that boy here? If he's here, let him come and they see him here. And then there was also a white man, Share. Was a white man, Share. Warusimbi was buying cattle for the Kampala beef market, Bukenya for the Mbarara market, and Share for the Kirembe copper mines workforce. So it was these three people who supported my education. Warusimbi would buy the cows to bring them to Kampala. Bukenya would take them to the small Mbarara market. Share would take the cows to Kirembe market. Even at that time, the complementarity among the tribes was becoming clear. But even in the pre-colonial times, the interzones trade had become clear. Textiles in Nyanda were coming from the coast in Zanzibar. The glass beads in Kwanzi were from the same source, and so were the guns. Ivory, Emino, however, was coming from the interior of the African continent, and so were the salt, the backcloth, the hose, etc. It is this historical mission of the need for prosperity that led us to discover the first ideological principle of our movement, of the NRM, as the minister was saying, patriotism, love Uganda. Why? It is because you need it for your prosperity as a market, among other advantages. However, learning from the history of other countries and also seeing what is happening in Uganda once it settled down and started recovery, we discovered that the internal market is not enough. As we speak today, Uganda has got surplus of milk, maize, bananas, beef, sugar, cement, steel products of certain types, etc., as the minister was telling you here. Where do we sell all these? This is when the NRM asked the Ugandans the following questions. Number one, have you heard of East Africa? Because you are stuck with your products. Have you heard of East Africa? Because you are busy with the tribes. Some people are telling you, we, as Banyankole, we, as Baganda, we, as Acholi, some of those fellows are busy telling you about the tribes. If you go Abasoga bene, we are this one. But why don't we solve if those are enough, why do we have a problem of surplus milk, surplus sugar, surplus this? And this is where the NRM said, have you heard of East Africa? Have you heard of Africa? Why don't you check whether they can buy what we produce and also buy what they produce? Indeed, as I speak now, East Africa and Africa are already buying parts of our surpluses. Otherwise, these sectors of the economy would have collapsed by now. That is how the NRM identified the second ideological principle of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism. Love Africa. Why? It is because we need it for our prosperity. This realization of the need for bigger markets was not only clear to the NRM. Others before us had realized this. Germany was not one country until 1871. Germanic-speaking people were divided into 39 kingdoms of Prussia, Saxony, Bavaria, etc. However, there was a strong business group in Prussia known as Junkers. It is written Junkers, but they pronounce it Junkers, that saw the importance of a united German market. Working with Bismarck, they pushed the pan-Germanism agenda, the unity of the Germans. France, by 1789, had been a united kingdom for a long time. There were, however, internal taxes between the provinces of France known as Gabelle. Those provinces were fiefdoms of the princes of those areas. The rising French middle class, the bourgeoisie, could not accept this. Indeed, the removal of these internal taxes were part of the grievances of the French Revolution. On these two ideological principles of patriotism and Pan-Africanism, we added socio-economic transformation and democracy. This was all to achieve historical mission number 1, prosperity for the African people through market integration. We are glad by 1980, the African leaders had started seeing the importance of market integration as part of the Lagos Plan of Action. When the NRM took power, we worked with the Wazee, Museveni, Mzee Mkapa, and Mzee Moi to revive the East African community that was relaunched on the 30th of November, 1999. The East African community has now expanded to incorporate Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, DRC, and Somalia. In addition, we have got COMESA and the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area. We need to remove all the trade barriers and develop infrastructure to facilitate this trade. However, we also need to ensure that countries that are beginning to come up are assisted. We don't want a common market where some countries benefit, others lose. No, it's very dangerous. The countries which are coming up must be assisted so that they also trade equitably. We should never allow trade imbalances among member states to persist. This market integration will address the historical mission of prosperity. However, we had also identified the second historical mission as that of strategic security. How can Africa ensure that never again will its people be threatened by anybody having gone through the 5 centuries of the slave trade, colonialism, and neocolonialism? Economic integration, if it is fully implemented, will address the issue of prosperity. However, during the Second World War, the developed countries of Holland, Belgium, Denmark, France, Norway, etc. became victims of German aggression. They are being developed notwithstanding. It was the Soviet Union and later the USA and UK that defeated the hegemonic Hitler. Even we, the Africans, 500,000 of Africans took part in that war, as did 2.5 million Indians who took part in that war to save those countries, France and Holland and all that. The highly developed Israel, in terms of technology, would find it difficult to survive in that zone without the cover of the United States of America. Some actors in the world talk of achieving superiority in the 4 dimensions: land forces, air forces, at sea, the Navy, and in space. Where does this leave Africa? Are we going to exist or not exist with the permission of others? Are we only to thrive with the permission of others? Coming to multidimensional strategic security, only 4 countries have been to the moon. These are USA, Russia, China, and India recently. Can Uganda manage a serious space program even when it becomes the first world country? As we tried to answer that question, there was already an answer given by our elders before independence. This was Uhuru na Umoja, freedom and unity. The present weaknesses in Africa are partly due to the mistake of arrivism, where the leaders prefer to remain big fishes in small ponds. It was only Mwalimu Nyerere of Tanganyika and Mzee Karume of Zanzibar that consummated the economic and political integration of the 2 countries to create Tanzania that has been a great success. Recently, the Union of Tanzania celebrated 60 years. We congratulate our brothers and sisters of Tanzania. Mbakwire kumungalo. Economic and political integration where possible are the correct answer to the question of prosperity and strategic security. It handles the 2 missions. In 1963, we were about to achieve the political federation of East Africa. There is a picture which I will give some of the, you can see it there. That picture. I have that picture. I will give it to a few people after my speech. But that was 1963, Uganda, August. They were saying federation this year, Federation of East Africa this year. That's what they were saying. Thank you. You can see the declaration, that declaration by our leaders. However, along the way, some of them developed cold feet. That is why Mwalimu Nyerere and Mzee Karume must be hailed as some of the most devoted Africans that have ever lived. You can be sure that if that federation had taken off, so many of the problems that afflicted us could have been avoided. Certainly, Amin would never have taken power in Uganda. If that federation was there, Idi Amin would never have taken power in Uganda here. Maybe the problems of Rwanda and Burundi could have been handled differently. The problems of South Sudan and Somalia could possibly have been handled differently, as would have been the problems of Congo. Why do I say this? Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, under one political authority, would have been so strong that their voice in these matters would have been decisive. I remember, for instance, our leaders then took a stand on the issue of Congo in 1965. Soon, however, the states started taking divergent positions, which would not have been the case if they were under one political authority. We must again salute Mwalimu Nyerere and Tanzania, because without the support of much of Africa, except for Zambia, Botswana, Algeria, Nasser's Egypt, and Guinea-Conakry, they were able to be a reliable rear base for the anti-colonial armed struggle that raged in Southern Africa from 1962 to 1994
when South Africa achieved freedom. It is a pity that after victory, we only got Uhuru, independence, and not Umoja, unity, especially political integration. The third historical mission we identified was the Undugu, Brotherhood, of the 1.5 billion African people. These people belong to only 4 linguistic groups: the Niger-Congo, the Bantus and the Kwa, the Nilo-Saharan, the Nilotics, the Cushitic and the Sudanic, the Afro-Asiatic, Arabic, Amharic and Tigrinya, and the Khoisan, the group in South Africa. Recently, I had a delegation from Congo, but we did not have a French translator. However, there was a Runyoro Rutoro speaker from Ituri province in Congo, Tebasima Atenyi. I therefore spoke in Runyoro, and he translated to the rest in French. This was just like 2 weeks ago when I had a group from Congo. I was speaking in Runyoro, and he was translating to those people in French. Apart from similar Interakistian, Bantu, and Nilotic dialects, we have the good luck of Swahili, which is a neutral, non-tribal dialect developed by our ancestors when they met at the East African coast to conduct business. Therefore, the third historical mission is a question, in quotes: why can't the responsible political actors use the Undugu, the brotherhood, similarities or linkages of these people to create units that support the other 2 historical missions of prosperity and strategic security? You don't hear anybody talking, this is political class, talking about, I don't know what they talk about on TV. I normally once in a while watch, talking nothing. How can you have a political class lost? Because when we were young, we were very much involved. Whatever happened in the whole of Africa, we were involved. In 1968, I went to Mozambique, to the liberated zone with some other students. I was not a Mozambican. Baleka ngabye wasande kukola, niboko nebeta sande kukola, n'amazima tegali mu bo. Ani anavunula ekyo bannange. They left undone what they ought to have done. They left undone what they ought to have done. They did what they ought not to have done, and there is no truth in them. That's what it says in English. With these 3 historical missions and the 4 ideological principles, we were able to shape our strategy vis-à-vis Africa. The movement, when you talk of movement, you are talking about the 3 historical missions and 4 ideological principles. Not about me. You are not important. Elect me. Elect you for what? Because you are handsome, because you are what? What medicine do you have for us? What medicine do you have for us? We need a medicine for our problems. With these 3 historical missions and the 4 ideological principles, we were able to shape our strategy vis-à-vis Africa. Whatever we did was guided by this. Why did we tactically work with Obote? But when Amin came, we decided to fight him. Because we saw Obote, we were trying to see how we can move him, beg him, see how to move him to our program. But Amin was off the point. So we said, kwenda, wewe toka. You cannot interfere with our destiny. We have a journey. We are on a journey. You stood in front of us, tunakutoa. But the strategy that we always commend, this strategy we always commend to our supporters, is to work for economic integration of the whole of Africa, so as to support prosperity of the African people and support the additional political integration in the parts of Africa where it is feasible by creating political federations, such as the Political Federation of East Africa. Mwalimu Nyerere and ourselves diverged a bit from Mzee Nkrumah and Muammar Gaddafi, who are talking of a continental government of the whole of Africa. We do not think that such a target of a continental government of the whole of Africa was either feasible or even desirable, because the whole of Africa does not possess enough similarities and linkages to be cohesive, a necessary prerequisite for political integration. East Africa is, and with the use of Swahili, can be very cohesive. The whole of Africa should be one common market. Apart from the major Congo linguistic group that has got a lot of similarities, there are also linkages with, for instance, the Nilo-Saharan groups of languages. This is how, amazingly, I discovered that the Somali word for cow is Saa. It is the very word that most of the Bantu dialects in the Great Lakes use to describe the cow dung, not any other dung. So what the Somalis call a cow is what we call cow dung here. But you can see the linkage. There are a lot of linkages with the Nilotic dialects that we do not have to go into here. It is this belief in the three historical principles and four ideological, three historical missions and four ideological principles that enabled the student movement of the 1960s to metamorphose into the armed Fronasa that fought Amin and eventually the NRA-NRM. We rejected the sectarian politics of identity of religion, tribes, and gender chauvinism. By 1986, by the force of 20,000 NRA fighters, backed by millions of civilians that were only propelled by conviction, not by any mercenary interests. The majority of the NRA UPDF have maintained this. That is why between 1971 and 2021, the NRA UPDF was fighting for no pay or low pay. Owing to death of some of our supporters, from natural causes mainly, we started getting some corrupt elements, but a minority. These are a minority and are easy to identify and isolate. The spirit of voluntarism was also strong among the civilians. That is why the National Resistance Council, for instance, we are getting a low salary, but we are content. When we came to the Constituent Assembly, we improved the pay, knowing that it was a temporary parliament. However, subsequent parliaments made two mistakes. One was to increase their salary and allowances, thereby departing from the spirit of sacrifice that had been the hallmark of the NRA, UPDF, NRM. Secondly, a group known as YPA, Young Parliamentarians Association, opportunistically and for cheap popularity, started going around the country and conducting fundraising for some cheap popularity projects, such as schools, etc. I warned them, but they could not listen. I did not want to precipitate a crisis with them when we had problems of Rwanda, Congo, South Sudan, etc. This is, however, why I rejected the call to raise the pay of the president. I said the president will never get a high salary as long as I'm in government and as long as the economy is still growing. Comrades, it's now time to see how to correct these two mistakes. This is because it led the population to believe that the political leaders have a lot of money and must share it with the voters in the form of bribes and endless fundraisings. Although the MPs gave themselves a lot of money, it is not enough to meet these indisciplined demands for bribes and fundraisings. Hence they end up with debts and some have run from the constituencies. I hear some of them are IDPs. Internally displaced persons. The government, through the budgets, is the one that can help the people to solve their problems. Programs like NADS, Operation Wealth Creation, PDM, Yoga, etc., have already shown that they can liberate people from poverty. You can see it. You can see it. There's a man from Kamwenge. If you can show me that Kamwenge man, you people, my group, the man in Kamwenge, the man of coffee. The man of coffee. Is that the one? That's another one. The one of Kamwenge was what has happened? Sabotage? That one was interesting because he used NADS and get him, when you get him, put him, that's the one.
Indi Kahunje Town Council, Rwekuba Ward, Yamgona Ser. Ejifamu, they are Konako and Family Enterprises, India acres, makumi atano. Hano maziraho, imyaka mingi iri kuyenga makumi ashatu. Kuko mugeze imyaka makumi ashatu, imyaka yo kubanza mingi, nkandi n'ibindi bichori. Nkandi nkinyatso bichori bingi munonga. Kuva kuna kutandika His Excellency ya PMA Plan for Modernization of Agriculture. Nibuna atandika kukunda ideas ize. Then of recent, kwa Jerome 4-acre model. Then nibuna ati tinkaza gume mu bichori. Abiko mu bichori nkampinga eka hamurwa byona ishanga nyiri mu katani kayishatu ukuzigura ishanga nyine mu kamiliyoni amago.
This man moved into coffee and all those things. When we were with NADS, there was something we were calling PMA, Plan for Modernization of Agriculture, which was like NADS. Then he started growing coffee. So what I'm saying here, the government, through the budgets, is the one that can help the people to solve their problems. Programs like NADS, Operation Wealth Creation, PDM, Emioga, etc. have already shown that they can liberate people from poverty. The current coffee boom was on account of the government scientists who developed the improved clonal coffee, different from the old variety that the people of Museveni had abandoned for the dairy industry. Now, I had some people saying that they are the ones who developed them. So I had some people claiming that. I didn't want to quarrel with them before telling them. But coffee and all these enterprises, oh, that is the grandson of Buchenya. Zahari Uganda abantu is half Uganda, half Munyankole. Bagambira Buchenya kuyagire mbara. Tell them we need
to His Excellency the President. I am privileged, Your Excellency, that my grandparents migrated and found themselves in Mbarara. So for us, we are actually very more fluent in Runyankore more than Luganda, although I'm called Seruwaji Habib. I thank Your Excellency for giving me an opportunity. Wafe Mbarara Katete.
Bajaja wagenda yodi.
Bajaja bagenda 1970 era bakwata ettaka ddene nnyo.
Nsanvu
1970.
No. This was in the 1950s.
It's anti Your Excellency. Fetwabasanga, I mean batuzaalanga gye tuli. Ne bali balina ettaka ddene nnyo.
No, you go and find out from your parents if they.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Okay, again.
Thank you very much.
This was in the 50s. Your man was 70. So some people are saying that claiming coffee, this one, you remember there was a group called, the one we abolished, what was it called? The one we rationalized. UCDA. UCDA. They were saying, oh, we are the ones who developed coffee. Coffee was saved by NRM, working with the scientists. When we developed improved the clonal coffee, which was yielding much more than the other coffee of the 1960s, 50s. To prove that, we had very, very important coffee growers in Bushenyi, people like Mukaira, like Chikuri, like others who are growing, Kekuruto, they were growing coffee. But because the coffee price collapsed in the 60s, I think, they abandoned and went to cows. Up to now, they are big dairy farmers. They had abandoned coffee. We are the ones who rescued coffee. So it is the government. The current coffee boom was on account of the government scientists who developed the improved clonal coffee, different from the old variety that people in Bushenyi had abandoned for the dairy industry. The dairy industry in the cattle corridor, you can see it for yourself, what it is doing there. If you can show us people like Kabera, the one of Gomba. Can you show us Kabera of Gomba?
Okuvana ku Gomba Next Generation Farm Street era nga ye Gomba Next Generation Model Farm nze farm manager faamu eno yatandikibwa omwami Kalera Philip era nga yawangula empaka z'emirimu yasinga 220 eziterekebwa Vision Group mu ggwanga lyonna. Faamu eno yatandika omwaka gwa 2003 era nga ekigendererwa kyali kyakulaba tutera okufuna mu byobulimi n'obulunzi. Twatandika nga tulunda ente ezaffe ennansi oba ze tuyita Enyankole paka mu mwaka gwa 2018 bwe twalaba 2005 amagoba bwe twajjangamu otuwulidde value y'ettaka nga tegenkanankana na capital oyo ali mu ttaka. Twalaba nti business tekola ne tukyusa ne tudda mu kulima okw'ekibalo mu 2019 ne tutandika olunda ente ez'amata ez'omubuyumba, enkoko, kulima amatooke, emmwanyi, kulunda embizzi n'okuteekawo ettendekero lisomesa abasawo b'ebisolo n'abalimisi. Twatandika ettendekero lino erya Bomba Next Generation Farm Institute okutendeka abavubuka. Twakizuula nti abavubuka bangi baagala nnyo okwenyigira mu byobulimi n'obulunzi naye nga babulamu obukugu obuli practical okwandiise hand zone nti twakizuula nti abavubuka bangi bafuna mu matendekero ag'ebyobulimi n'obulunzi naye nga balina theory mungi naye ng'okukwatako okukola faama kikyagala oba yekenyi kyagala okwekolera nga tebakimanyi. Ekitufuula ab'enjawulo nti abaana baffe tubayigiriza nga bakolera ddala ekyo okugeza nti okuwa ssente okuzijjanjaba kuba faamu eriko ente 5 tegeeza ente ezo zibamala okusomerako. Enkoko nazo ziri nyingi zisukka mu 2,000, embizzi, emmwanyi eka 5 nti omwana ono byonna bikolera ddala. Wano tuli mu nkoko ez'amagi ze bayita layers. Kati wano tulina enkoko zisoba mu 2,000 mukudda waggulu. Naye kansomese omuntu wanvubuka munnange oyo bwe baalyako ssente z'empitirivu nti yali asobola okulunda enkoko ez'amagi 1000 nti okuzimba ekiyumba eky'enkoko ez'amagi 1000 weetaaga wakati w'obukadde 3-5 okusinziira ki kyoyagala. Kati nga wano ewange kozesa ssente ntonotono ze twakozesa. Kati enkoko obuto okulya eddagala drinka neziriira ne nezinywera okutuuka ku levo wezibiikira emyezi ekitundu ku myezi 4 weetaaga miliyoni 18 ku miliyoni 2. Lwaki? Nti olumu emmere ebeerako neguddemukko olumu ng'eyambuseemukko tobalambala nti miliyoni 18 ku 2. Nezituuka ku levo eyo nga zitandise obiika kiba kitegeeza zisobola okuweezaawo ate naawe nezikuweezaawo. Kakati mu mbeera eyo nga zitandise okubiika tubala lunaku zirya kyenkanya ki. Enkoko 1000 zirya buli nkoko erya grams 12. Kitegeeza enkoko 1000 zirya kilo 12.
He will take long, but that is now, you hear how he started this modern farming in 2019, and he's earning quite a lot of money. So the coffee, the dairy industry, the poultry, the Karangara palm oil project, these are projects pushed by the government that have transformed people's lives, not petty money from MPs for fundraising or bribes. So this is suicide for nothing. The voters need to know that these practices of bribes and fundraising are overthrowing the voters' power. The voters, you are overthrowing your own power by electing people because they have given you money. Because then you are power to elect leaders that will work with the central government to solve the problems of the voters, such as infrastructure, supervised wealth funds that are being stolen by the parish chiefs, etc. Do not accept petty money from politicians and throw away your power to elect a leader that can kwemerera is the Runyankore word to supervise the money sent to you through the parish or to fight corruption in your area. Once we solve the problem of political corruption that has paralyzed the populist politicians, it will be easy to fight the corruption of the public servants. Why? It is because we have a reliable source for Okurega. Okurega is whistleblowing. These are the people, the victims of the corruption. The people who are the people who are deprived of these services, the population are the victims of the corruption. In the 1960s, we would go to the people. They had all the information. The big changes that are happening in Uganda are by the following actors: the National Resistance Army, UPDF, that liberated the country and has been ensuring peace ever since. The wealth creators in the 4 sectors of agriculture, manufacturing, services, and ICT. The government scientists that make innovations, and the responsible members of the political class that have been supporting the NRM programs. It is therefore not fair for some actors to spoil these successes. Some people say that they give bribes because Museveni is always giving the khaki envelope to members of the population. Do not draw water mixed with mud. Do not mix up issues. The brown envelopes I give are part of the ancient tradition here. It is called Okorongora. It is the king who does that to the singers or wrestlers, etc. President is the modern king. You are not kings. You are not kings. I have a budget for that. I do not sell my cows to get money kurongora singers. Murekerao umwenkana unkano. This is the Uganda word, it summarizes the whole thing. Murekerao umwenkana unkano. Stop trying to be like the one who is bigger than you. You tell those people that Museveni gives the envelope because he has got a budget. He's president. I'm not president. Why do you want? Fundraising was and is premature. The head of the fundraising is Oksonda. Fundraising is our word is Oksonda, whereby you make small equal contributions but by many contributors. In the 1950s, Mzee Kaguta sometimes would participate in Oksondera to contribute for Enjoga. Enjoga, a pot full of ruagwa, of banana alcohol. At that time, Enjoga, a pot full was 5 shillings. 5 people would contribute 1 shilling each. That's the Oksonda, that is the fundraising. You contribute equal, small amounts that you can afford. But with what's happening now, with the rampant fundraising, the MP carries the whole burden. The MP carries the whole burden. It is really extortion. But it was instigated by the MPs who created the impression that they had the type of money when they did not have. Even the church leaders and other elders should ask those young mistake makers the following question. Naye mwana wange, esente zino zonna ozijjawa? That's what I would ask my people if I saw young people throwing around money. That is what a responsible parent should ask Omwana, son or daughter, or a muzukuru, grandchild, if he or she sees him or her throwing around money. The translation of that question is, my child, from where are you getting all this money that you are throwing around? The responsible parents should not accept stolen gifts from their children or mawanja from their children. So I thought this is what I wanted to comment on the issue of the political corruption and the other corruption. Now, I'm getting information about Obtarondora not checking on government work. I keep hearing, for instance, of bad feeder roads, that feeder roads in some of the areas are not good. Yesterday I was in Kakumiro. The feeder road I rode on was good, it looked good. When I was going to Kagadi, it was a short one, but it was good. The other time I was in Obongi, and the feeder roads there were very good, which we rode on. The other time I was in the Bugwere area, Budaka, Parisa, from the cassava factory. I think we were going to Kamonkori. The feeder roads looked good, but when I drove from Busunju to Mitiana, the road was very bad, the Maram road there. And also the other road to the Tamak road, but that one they are working on it, the Tamak road. So, and when we were in Bunyangabu, this issue came up. The question is, what are the districts doing with the 1.3 billion shillings you are sending to them? What is happening? I am now going to send my spies quietly to check on some of these roads. And once I find the road is not worked on, and yet the government people are there, the cow is there, is quiet, the diesel is there, the GSOs are there, I will go for them. They will have to answer. If the 1.3 billion is not enough, tell us, because the feeder roads are very crucial. If you say it's not enough. Now I found that in the case of Bunyangabu, they were mixing up issues. The 1.3 billion is to maintain the roads which are already done, which are already made. But they were saying, oh, they want to make bridges across swamps. No, you can't do that with the 1.3 billion. That's new money. That's a new project. Maintain the present roads the way they are, so that you have the maram there, you have the gravel, they are compacted, drainage. This is a must. I will check, and if I find there will be casualties on the local government people there, even the RDC. Why should this be the case when all these people are there? But now for the voters, that's why you need to vote people who care, not the ones you give money to, the ones who have given you money. Now on the issue of the implementation, we'll have to, so much money has been already availed for so many roads. I have a whole list here. Masaka Mutukula, the money is there. The money for Rusari, Dakasambia, Nkonge, Rumegere. Roads like Moyo, Afoji, Katuna, Muko, Kamganguzi, Kumi, Ngora, Serere, Kagwara, Kampala, Maraba, meter gauge, Chitugum, Chidepo, Greater Kampala Metropolitan Roads, so the MPs should follow up this money which is already provided, because I have got a long list here of the money already provided, some of it from loans. Even for education, for health, all this money is here. Now finally, you get misinformation. For instance, the other day I was in Viantonde, and some of the veterans of the NRA, of the Ruero veterans, were talking about some issues. And when I checked, we have already provided 218 billion shillings or something like that for the Kasimo. And the Kasimo was supposed to be 5 million for leaders each and 1 million for supporters. Now, this money, 218 billion, has already, it's too much money. So what happened? Who took this money? And yet I heard some of them were complaining. You are going to dig up the whole thing. Then you get the cattle compensation. Teso, Lango, Achori. We have already spent 200 billion shillings on that. Who got this money? And we have now budgeted for another 80 billion. You had it being read here. So you, the leaders, follow up this money. Of course, I will also follow up now that I'm involved. Then you get things like the stadiums. Quite a bit of money has been sent to some of these stadiums. So the National Council of Sports needs to explain to us. I hear some money has gone for stadiums like Kachieka, like a number of them. To do that, to do this, some work. Others are going to be done massively, like Akibo and so on. So the Council of Sports should also explain, come and brief Mom about all this money. Now finally, I saw some issue about the digital number plates of vehicles, about fines, that people are being fined for, I don't know for what. But the issue about the number plates is not fines. It is anti-crime. I want my people to put on the TV a picture I saw in today's paper. Put that picture, if you have it. Today, you see that young man? 45 years, was killed on 10th of June, a few days ago. This one here, Geoffrey Wayengara. It was in today's paper. I cannot accept our Ugandans dying because of an incomplete infrastructure. You remember when I addressed you in Parliament, I think it was 2018, I told you about the cameras. You were here with your policemen, just there, and that was all they were doing. The one who's going to kill people doesn't call witnesses to see him. So I said, please, let's go technical. Let's have cameras. Now the cameras have helped us to handle a number of things. But the problem they have is that the number plates, these ones which are just, they are cooked. They just go and pick something and put it there. These are digitized number plates with a central command post. You touch it, the command post alarm goes off. This is the work of the digital number plates, not collecting fines and so on. I think the confusion about fines could be because we didn't have money, and we told these people to do the number plates. Maybe we recover the money from those who make mistakes, fines. I don't know. I think that's where the confusion started. But the issue is about the number plate is digitized. Every vehicle must have a digital number plate, traceable by the central machinery, central command, to know which pikis were in this area at this time, which cars were in this area. Because these number plates which are put on and put off, these are meaningless. This is the whole thing about the digital number plates. It's not about money, fines, what, no. It's about security. That boy now, such a young person killed, they're acting with impunity. This is what I cannot accept. Look at this one. Was killed here in Mkono, I think. Yes, killed. And then we must now go, the cameras, sometimes the cameras also, they cover their faces. It's not easy to know. The number plates are forged. No. This is the purpose of the digital number plate. It's about security, not money, fines, what? Rubbish. Apoyo Matek Rubangatiye.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the successful delivery of the budget and fulfilling your constitutional obligation. We reiterate our commitment as legislature to apply its mandate to the realization of the progressive intentions for the country and its citizens. Honorable members and all the invited guests, you have been invited for a cocktail.
I didn't know I had a standing ovation, so I must bow.
You've been invited for a cocktail at Serena by Minister of Finance. Thank you.
Now, on the issue of the federation, I brought that picture there. I want to give one to the speaker. Take it to her. I want to give another one to the leader of the vice president, if she's here as the head of the government. Is she here? Give one to the vice president. Give another one to the chief whip of the NRM. Give another one to the leader of the opposition. Have you heard of that person? Leader of the opposition. So that they can start talking about serious politics, not rubbish. Leader of opposition, where is he? Come and they give it to you. Come. That one there. Then who is the other one? Oh, the Dean of the Diplomat Corps. The Dean of the Diplomat Corps. Who is the Dean now? The Dean there, is there.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.